But time to take the propeller off. The first thing to do about taking the propeller off is to take the prop spinner off. The prop spinner consists of three parts. There's the main spinner that you can see there, and that's held on with a whole bunch of screws. Then there's a front plate that goes out in the front, a bulkhead that goes out in the front there. And then there's a rear bulkhead that goes behind the propeller. I need to mark those so I know how to reference them to put them back together, and then take all those screws out. I got the spinner dome off. Now we got the forward bulkhead there and then the rear bulkhead, and they're held on with the bolts that hold the propeller on. Some airplanes, propeller spinner is an important part of the cooling system on the engine. It helps divert the air into the cowlings and helps pressurize the air in the cowling for cooling the cylinders. But on a Super Cub, it's not that big of a deal. The Cubs have got everything from a little teeny dome on the front of the props just to kind of cover up the bolts and stuff to the spinner that I have. The standard one is an aluminum spinner with aluminum backing plate. The ones that are common that are PMA'd for the airplane are from Univair, and I don't think much of the Univair stuff there. They keep cracking out and stuff. The one I've got here is from TCB Composites. It's fiberglass, it's lightweight, it's strong, it's PMA'd, STC'd for different pipers and stuff. Well, we got the STC on it for here on the Super Cub. Well, here's the propeller. This is what holds the propeller on here. There's 2, 4, 6 bolts. I think they're AN 7s, I think. Go through the bulkhead here, holds the bulkhead, the front bulkhead on, and then they go into the hub on the front of the engine, and it holds the rear bulkhead on and also the flywheel or the ring gear. You got to get nippers and cut the safety wire off of those, and then a wrench and take those bolts off there, and then we can take the propeller off. The propeller's off. Here's the rear bulkhead. I can take that ring gear off of there so we can get that belt off there for the alternator. There's the belt for the alternator, and there's the ring gear, starter gear. Now the engine is ready to come off of there. I've got to go get a big step ladder and get up there and move my chain hoist over above the engine and drop it down and kind of take the weight off of the engine. Then I'll take those bolts out of there, out of the engine mount. We should be able to swing that or pull that engine out off of the airplane. And help me move this board over here and stand up.
Stand it up where?
Against the wall.
Just right there?
Yep.
want to?
Yep.
Oh, I see. Closer, closer.
That should...
How about if we push it so the center of the, oh, we can't get the engine through there, it's too big. Never mind. Not a good thought. You ordered some more heaters because they don't work, or just don't have enough?
Well, one of them up there doesn't work, and I want to put one over the workbench.
Oh, good idea.
So, yeah.
Yeah, makes it warmer.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Okay. Oh, here's what the mount looks like. This is the bolt that goes through and holds the engine on here, big washer. These are those rubber mounts, and they go in this pocket that's molded into the engine case. So well, the engine is off of there. Got it sitting down on my work platform. Went and got some of that styrofoam left over blocking off the vents up here, the rafter bays up here on the roof of the hangar, and stuck underneath it. It's got studs sticking down out of the oil sump for the carburetor to attach to, and on the front there for the starter to attach to, and it's got a quick drain on the other side there that pushes up and locks to drain the sump, the engine oil out of the engine sump. So that engine is off of there. Now I've got pieces off the back of it that I've got to take off and transfer over to the other engine. There's an oil filter adapter on there, and then there's a few pipe fittings and stuff on there. So this is the engine mount here, and I can unbolt this right here and move this, swing this engine. I have to loosen the bolts on that side. I can swing this engine mount out to work on the back of the engine once on here, and that's probably what I'll have to do to take this muffler out of there. I probably need to take that muffler out of there and take the shroud off of it to inspect it to make sure it's still in good shape. But so these big pads right here are what the engine mounts to. And this is the engine mounts here. You get the bolts go through there. This is cast right into the engine case. Big washer. And there's one of the rubber mounts, and there's a contour tapered, goes right in there. So these mounts go right in there like that, and then this one goes up against the pad on the engine mount, and the bolt goes through both of them, and that's what holds it on. This is the adapter for the oil filter. Normally that comes with just a smaller piece in here, and has an oil screen that goes in there, a fine screen that's what filters the oil on that. This is where the ventilation, crankcase ventilator comes out right here. So that hose, we trash that one and get a new one and stick on there. And that fitting's got to come out of there. And this is upper fitting for the high pressure oil for the oil cooler. And then down here underneath the oil filter adapter, there's another T that comes out for to go to the oil cooler. And then over here on this side, there's a small fitting that goes for the oil pressure gauge. Tachometer fits right in here. I think I showed all that stuff. The new engine. Anyway, those are what have got to come off of here for to get transferred over onto the new engine. And down underneath, I got all of the primer lines here. When the guys rebuilt this engine, the guy got some steel lines for primer lines here attached to that, and that's fine, except they rust up in this country in the salt air and stuff. They've got 8 L clamps here and several spots holding those on. So with it on the engine, I wanted to get the primer off of there and out of the way, so I just cut the lines on there. I'm going to make up new lines anyway for that. The bolts in the washers will go back on. These donuts here, these engine mounts, I've got new bushings, rubber bushings for that, for the new engine. And those take a lot of abuse, so they get, well, these aren't too bad a shape. They weren't sagging very much actually, but a little bit. You can see a little bit of sag in them and a little bit of deformation in them, so they should be changed about every 500 hours or so. I think I've changed these once since this engine was overhauled. So the magnetos stay on here. This one magneto was just freshly overhauled. It was just put on. It's got a couple hundred hours on it. There's 500 hours. I was taking them apart and checking them anyway. And that one was just done last year. But got new magnetos on the new engine, and I've got 2 overhauled magnetos, fresh overhauled magnetos in storage, so these go back with the engine. Well, I got all the pieces that I need to transfer off of that engine block. One of the hose fittings, I had to get the torch out to get it to loosen up, put on the boss there and heat it up a little bit on the casting, and heat it up a little bit and kind of soften up the gookumpucky that was stuck around the fitting. And the other 2 came out okay, and then the oil filter housing came off just fine. Now I got to decide whether I want to just take the oil screen housing off of the new engine and put it on this one, or go dig through my stash for the oil filter housing that came off of this engine and put it back on there. I might just go ahead and do that and save the new screen, although I don't know why. I don't really need the screen anyway. And the other thing I've got to do, I've got to dig out 4 more spark plugs and clean them up and put in there. It's supposed to ship it back with spark plugs in it too. So I've got 4 spark plugs in the top ones, and I've got some more old spark plugs over here I can dig out and stick in there. But otherwise, that engine is all done with. That one is off of the airplane, and it's all stripped. It's ready to go in the crate to get shipped back.